Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. It's very exciting. First off, I want to recognize my colleague, Minister Raymond Cho, who has been a strong advocate for the ASL community, as well as for all Canadians, young people with disabilities, and really just to ensure our education system is accessible to all children in Ontario. I also want to thank Wanda Blackett from Silent Voice Canada, her translator Gloria, and the entire team for their advocacy and their participation and leadership today. And I also want to acknowledge the interpreters that are joining us today. Chris Delage from Toronto Sign Language Interpreter Services. Many of us across the province will know Chris. He has been at our many of these briefings before with the Premier, and obviously a very inspiring Canadian, and we're really grateful for everything he does for the ASL community. We're here today to announce an important and innovative initiative in the curriculum we offer high school students in this province. This September, Ontario will become one of the first jurisdictions in Canada to offer high school students second language courses in American Sign Language in langue des signes québécois. Before I get to the details of today's announcement, I want to acknowledge our many teachers and our school employees across this province for their dedication during these challenging times. I am incredibly impressed with the efforts of our teachers, parents, and our students. Everyone is going above and beyond. During this time, our government has been squarely focused on keeping students safe and learning, and that really is priority number one. In response to the pandemic we face, to date, more than $50 million has been provided to school boards to help them meet the needs of students with special education needs and support the mental health of our students. That includes the Safe Return to Fund and the provincial investments we've made. This has been a challenging time for everyone, there's no doubt, but our government has stepped up to provide the resources necessary to protect our students, our families, as well as our staff. But even as they have been our priority for the past year, we have continued to improve the quality of education for young people and to create new, innovative learning opportunities for them. I'm going to attempt the announcement at ASL before I continue in English. And the translators are smiling, so I think I did okay in this respect. But I'm very pleased to announce the release of new American Sign Language, ASL, and LSQ second language courses in our province. ASL and LSQ are distinct languages, each with unique histories, cultural references, and distinct grammar and syntax. Now, to ensure accuracy of the languages and to include authentic ASL and LSQ perspectives, we consulted with the ASL and LSQ communities and stakeholders about the course content. We cannot have created and offered this curriculum without their involvement and their expertise. And I want to personally thank Heather, who is my translator and my teacher in helping me learn ASL as minister as well as a citizen that wants to better embrace the ASL and FLQ community, the LSQ community. So thanks to the hard work of our collaborators with our department, we're now able to offer high school students the chance to learn ASL or LSQ as a second language and give them the opportunity to expand their language skills, which is critical in today's education and today's job market. These new courses will position Ontario as a leader in providing second language curriculum for the development of language and cultural skills in ASL and in LSQ. In fact, Ontario is the first jurisdiction in Canada to offer ministry-developed LSQ as a second language curriculum, and one of the first jurisdictions to offer ministry-developed ASL as a second language curriculum, which will support students in developing new language skills and cultural competencies, engaging basic ASL and LSQ conversations in guided and interactive settings, and understanding, creating, and sharing basic ASL and LSQ literacy works in ASL, LSQ text. And finally, just the understanding the connections between language, culture, identity, and community. These courses will support students in acquiring their knowledge and skills needed for lifelong language learning, transferable skills that will be invaluable for life beyond the classroom. And I can attest to this from my own time as a student. Learning a second language opened up new opportunities for myself and for so many young people across the province to grow, to challenge, and to be able to contribute in a more global lens. So I'm very pleased to announce schools will be able to offer these new courses starting this September 2021. The curriculum is available on our Curriculum and Resources website, with further resources and videos to be added later this year in preparation and anticipation for September. We launched this digital space back in June 2020, and we continue to add new content and features to make it increasingly interactive for parents, for the educators, and for the students most especially. And to support teachers in delivering these new second language courses, the ministry has been working with the Ontario College of Teachers to add new additional qualifications for ASL and for LSQ. With these new qualifications, teachers will receive training on how to teach ASL as a second language and LSQ langue seconde using second language pedagogy and to guide students through those courses. And to further support, students and the new ASL and LSQ curricula are in the process of being translated from English and French text to ASL, LSQ respectively. This is an innovative undertaking for the Ministry of Education. It will be the first of its kind in Ontario and in this country. I thank all of our value partners, all of our stakeholders, everyone, for helping to make this possible and to deliver these new courses for Ontario students. I would now like to turn the floor over to my friend and to my colleague, Minister Raymond Cho, a strong advocate for students, as well as Ontario's Minister of Seniors. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Raymond Cho, Ontario's Minister for Seniors and Accessibility. I would like to thank Minister Lecce for inviting me to join him today. I'd like to thank the members of our K-12 Standards Development Committee for their ongoing dedication to working to address accessibility, equity, inclusion in K-12 education. I'm very proud to be here today. Our government is helping students to understand and appreciate a new language by offering the opportunity to learn ASL and or LSQ. Students can make connections between language, culture, identity, and community. And we know that understanding and appreciation are fundamental to creating an Ontario that is equitable and inclusive for everyone. When our government launched our Advancing Accessibility in Ontario framework, we made this one of the 4 central pillars. Our other focus areas include breaking down barriers in the built environment, ensuring our government is leading by example, and increasing participation in the economy for people with disabilities. creating a more equitable and inclusive Ontario is an ongoing journey made by many partners. When we journey together, we can create stronger Ontario for everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate in today's event. It is really a celebration of the understanding and appreciation of language and culture. Thank you. Okay.
All right. It's my pleasure to introduce for us Wanda, who represents Silent Voice Canada. Wanda Blackett, please take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. The ASL and LSQ communities are celebrating today. Silent Voice Canada is thrilled that ASL and LSQ curriculum for second language learners is now available in the province of Ontario. Today, ASL and LSQ credit courses, the fact that they'll be available has tremendous impact on our community. ASL and LSQ has traditionally been looked down upon, but this initiative will show that these languages are equivalent to spoken language, be they English, French, or other spoken languages. Historically, communities that are marginalized, minority languages, have been looked down upon, mostly because people don't understand those languages. But today, and this initiative will really show and bolster the opportunity to raise awareness for these communities and understanding for our youth who will have an opportunity to learn these languages. They will have more awareness of these languages. They will be able to see that language is complex, that it's very rich. And deaf community not only has language, but they have culture. And these cultures and languages have been part of our fabric for many, many years. So this is a signal that those communities are now being respected in a meaningful way. I think moving forward, our society will become more inclusive because of the decisions that we've made here today. There are many, many signers out there, users of ASL and LSQ, that we might not even realize live in our communities and in our neighborhoods. It could be your aunt, it could be your neighbor, it could be someone at your school. They use sign language. And because of this initiative, future leaders, be they deaf leaders or hearing leaders, they will be able to sign, and they will be able to engage with community members who also sign and build those connections. Silent Voice Canada wants to congratulate the Ontario Ministry of Education for their work in providing ASL and LSQ credit courses in our high schools. I think this has shown that that Ontario is truly a leader. Thank you, and I'll hand it back over to Minister Lecce.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. So we'll take questions.
We'll go to the phone lines for questions. Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up. First question.
First question from Chris Rushowy at the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. My question is about how these new courses are going to work. Is every board, every school have to offer them? And will they be taught initially at least by ASL instructors, and are there enough of them?
Yeah, so all school boards in the province will have access to the courses. We're going to be encouraging all boards, especially where there is demand for students to have access to those courses. That is really critical. School boards right now have ASL as well as LSQ instructors, those with professional competence and experience in this area, to help provide and lead that instruction. That's going to be really critical, not just in language, but as was noted, obviously in the context of the cultural appreciation, the diversity that exists in the language. So, as Wanda, rightfully noted, giving greater access to students as a second language, meaning this would be for students who, have a primary language, but they want to learn another language, like any other language of the world. ASL, LSQ could really enrich their lives, their relationships, but also I think the skills that they'll need in life and in the job market. So it is exciting, and it will be offered to all school boards in the province of Ontario for this September.
Follow-up?
Thank you. And with regards to COVID,
Yes.
given what's been going on in communities like Sudbury, for example, or Thunder Bay, have you or the medical officers of health given any consideration to maybe shutting down all schools there for a short time to help with the spread of COVID, especially like Sudbury as they move into lockdown?
Yeah. The local medical officers of health have made a decision, based on a significant increase in community cases, out of abundance of caution, to, in the case of Thunder Bay, to close schools for a period of time. That decision point was made by medical experts out of abundance of caution, to have kids stay at home, to not potentially compound the issue of transmission that did not originate, or the origins of which are not from schools. They are very much from the community, but that community risk has created some challenge and risk to the schools themselves. So those are decisions made by the local medical officers of health. From the Ministry of Education, we have offered to those boards, and to be fair, any board that faces challenges with outbreaks as a consequence of community cases, testing, asymptomatic testing, to be deployed within those schools. In many cases, the local public health authority already has their own testing on site. Sometimes they've used our support, sometimes they just don't need it because they've got it and they're already deployed where they're required. So we're going to continue, of course, to provide any support at the education levels. The Premier mentioned in the legislature, continued support for those northern boards. I understand the Minister of Health has confirmed that vaccine has been deployed into those communities. Additional vaccine, antigen testing. So we're really going to take a whole of government approach to help fix a problem that is in the community, to get those case numbers down, reopen the community safely, and especially for our kids in Northern Ontario that want to be back to school.
Next question.
From Nicole Thompson at the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to sort of follow up on what Chris asked about the the availability of instructors. To what extent do you think there will be uptick in this, given the number of instructors available?
Well, if Wanda is comfortable, perhaps she could give context for a bit of her insight and expertise on the amount of instructors that exist and maybe the amount that will be required, given the incredible progress being made in offering LSQ and ASL courses. I don't mean to put Wanda on the spot, but her expertise on this subject matter is much more profound than mine. So with her permission, I turn it to her.
Thank you, Minister. I think it's a good question. LSQ and ASL, in terms of the availability of proficient teachers who could teach at all of the school boards. I think if we're looking at answering this question today, we're not there yet, but I think there is possibility for capacity building over the next little while. Certainly we do have teachers available, but with this initiative now, I expect that pool will increase over time. I think it's important to recognize that some capacity does have to be built over time. Thank you. If that answers the question, thank you.
I wanted to ask a COVID question. Minister Lecce, I'm wondering about the prevalence of variants of concern in schools right now, and to what extent they pose a risk, and how the ministry and how schools are actively working to prevent the spread of those variants.
Well, we do know that schools remain safe, as noted by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. I mean, we have, roughly 99+% of schools in the province that remain open, notwithstanding the variants of concern, notwithstanding continued, rates of transmission hovering around and north of 1,000 cases per day. That, I think, is in part because of the great work of parents screening their children and taking a very tough approach to not putting their child into a school where they may have symptoms and therefore may create risk for their friends and the staff within the school. I also think it underscores the strength of our protocol, of the health and safety program we put in place, supported by and informed by the Chief Medical Officer of Health and by other medical experts in Ontario. All of the tests that are done, the PCR tests that are done in Ontario, go through a lab process to screen for any VOCs. And obviously action is taken where VOCs are found within our schools, led by the local medical officer of health. There's a greater, I think, the instinct of the entire system. My observation is we're being extremely cautious, in the context of sending cohorts home or schools for short periods of time, upwards of 2 weeks, if they think that there could be a risk. At the end of the day, in this province, notwithstanding that global challenge of the variants of concern that have come to our shores in this province and country, we still retain very strong levels of safety within our schools, with well more than 99% of schools open and with well over 99% of students not having an active case, at least that we are cognizant of. What I can say in the context of our asymptomatic testing, which often goes into communities, into the very communities where there may have been an outbreak or case, potentially where VOCs will have arisen. Last week, there was 450 schools that were identified, for testing, and there was a positivity rate of roughly 0.61%. While that is a low level compared to the community, it doesn't mean we need to let up our guard. We need to remain very vigilant, to your point about these VOCs and the necessity for us to strengthen our protocol, which is why the Chief Medical Officer of Health a few weeks ago announced that beyond Toronto and Peel, all communities will adopt the one symptom screener. So one symptom, a child must stay home. That has some impact for families, but at the end of the day, it's all about being extremely cautious to identify and ultimately to prevent cases from entering schools in the first place.
Next question, and this will be the last question.
Okay.
From Nigel Hunt at CBC News. Please go ahead.
Hi there, Minister Lecce. Before
Hi.
the pandemic, you announced that all high school students would have to take 2 online courses,
Yes.
and that was originally going to start in September 2020. Given what we have seen, how online learning is not satisfactory for many students, what is your plan for these 2 mandatory online courses for high school students, and will this plan start this September?
Yeah, I think first off, in the province of Ontario, we adopted a principle of choice, that students and their parents should always retain the right to opt out of a program that requires the 2 online learning courses. That's for high school students that would take 2 of their entire school year courses. 2 of them would be online. You can, as a parent, opt out, because for our government, we really do understand and appreciate it's your choice. And for some students, a minority, they seem to really excel in online. For many students, and even for myself, drawing on my own experience, I prefer to have been in class. That is a choice at the end of the day that's based on the preference of a student in consultation with their parent, and that's going to be preserved for September. What I could also say is the quality of online learning has dramatically been enhanced between last spring, and the current context, where we just see the entire system, the infrastructure has been improved, the training of our educators has been strengthened, the platforms are better, and I just think internet connectivity has really come a long way, even in the past 6 and 9 months in Ontario. Keeping in mind that every school in the province of Ontario this coming September will have internet, but all high schools already had internet as we speak today. What I'd also say is, I recognize that for many students, by choice or by sort of imposition of the pandemic, they have been this year learning online. I mean, the vast majority, I think roughly 70% of high school kids are doing a bit of that in-class online learning as we speak. I guess my point is, I understand that students, either by choice or otherwise, they've been learning online, and that's going to really inform my decision about how the next grade 9 cohort, starting this September, where that 2 online learning requirement is required and starts then, I'm going to really lean into that perspective and advice about how they've already learned online and how that should probably be accounted towards, some of that requirement for the 2 online learning courses. So we're listening to the parents and to the students themselves. We're strengthening the system. We're offering the choice. We're the only province in the country, putting aside the online learning for high school. When we speak about remote learning, which is sort of the Zoom-style classes that students learn in all day, that program, we're the only province in the nation to have offered parents, for their elementary children all the way to their high school kids, the choice for your child to stay home if there's immunocompromised siblings or parents, you live with a grandparent, and a lot of intergenerational families, whatever the circumstance. We created the infrastructure, set the expectation, funded the program, and gave you the choice. And there's 9 provinces that just don't have that. And so we're going to continue to build upon it and make it better, but always, always allow and ensure parents and students make the choice best for themselves. Thank you.
Follow-up?
There was a recent TDSV survey that said 84% of students said they learn better in person compared to virtual learning. But I'm wondering then, just to make sure I'm clear on that, so these are not going to be, they were referred to before as mandatory courses. Now you're saying they're purely optional. There's no obligation for a student to take these previously mandatory online courses. Could you just clarify that, please?
The requirement for graduation includes 2 online learning courses. However, as we've always said, students and their parents could opt out of that requirement if they prefer to have their entire high school experience done in class.
Perfect.
Alrighty,
Thanks,
thank you so
everyone.
much. Have a good day.